That's because it's all those different cultural levels, cultural horizons, systems of thought are all being coordinated by the collective unconscious in the noosphere. Right? So moving from the noosphere as the collective unconscious to the noosphere as the collective conscious. And Vernadsky and Teilhard de Chardin both said the noosphere is imminent. In 1941, Vernadsky was writing about the noosphere, and he was saying, the advent of the noosphere is something every statesman in the world should be aware of. He said, the noosphere is a function of what he referred to as biogeochemical combustion. That is to say, the rapid industrialization and burning up through fossil fuels and creating of the greenhouse gases, which is creating a fever in the biosphere. And this fever in the biosphere, biogeochemical combustion, is what will precipitate a qualitative change in the very nature of life itself. And this qualitative change is referred to as the noosphere, that we're going to be snapped into a higher consciousness. Vernadsky said once we snap into the higher consciousness that we'll enter a whole new geological era, which he referred to as the Psychozooic Era, the spiritualization of life. There's a Marxist scientist. At the same time, Teilhard de Chardin, Jesuit Catholic, biologist and paleontologist in the south of France, developing very similar thought. He said that we have to think in terms of the universe as there being planets with noosphere and planets without noosphere. Our planet is a planet with noosphere. The noosphere is something that's evolved into when the leading dynamic organism becomes planetary in nature, develops some type of global technology that unifies it, and that global technology that unifies it then is preparatory to its taking the humanity to a point of consciousness, spiritual consciousness unification, which he referred to as the omega point. And at the omega point, it's like the Christing of consciousness occurs and we enter into the noosphere. The omega point is 2012. We are very close. We are all living in the cauldron of biogeochemical combustion. The burning of the resources, the destruction of the ozone layer, the destruction of the rainforest, the release of radioactivity, the continuing release of greenhouse gases, the emissions, all of that is the fever of the biosphere as it is ready to precipitate its next condition, its release from the enslavement to third-dimensional materialist technology and belief system into a state of spiritual advance. It's not just we who are evolving, but we are evolving life and the planet along with us. Sri Aurobindo, though he didn't speak of the noosphere, spoke of the descent of the supra-mental, meaning that which is beyond mind. Sri Aurobindo said, what we call mind and consciousness is just a function of our ignorance. That there is something beyond mind, beyond what we conceive of as mind, the supra-mental, where our consciousness is released into absolute galactic cosmic consciousness, what R.M. Buck wrote about in his Cosmic Consciousness. That we are to be released into this. Interestingly, in the same year, that Vernadsky and Desjardins coined the phrase the noosphere in 1926, and that same year on November 24th, 1926, Sri Aurobindo experienced what he called to as the descent of the supramental. The supramental, he said for the first time in the earth plane, that the supramental had descended into the plane of human consciousness, and that this was a sign of the acceleration of the spiritual mental evolutionary process. These are all fundamental signs that we are now very close to that point where the evolutionary trip switch is about to be flipped. But the point of the advent of the noosphere, the point of the fulfillment of the prophecy of 2012, is that we have to do something. It's not just a matter of passively waiting for it to occur. We have to take spiritual action, mental action ourselves. We have to read the signs and know that there is something we must do. As I said, one thing we must do is realize that we are operating in an error in time and return to living in harmony with the universal cycles of nature. And the simple instrument to do that is with the 13-moon, 28-day calendar, which is based on universal harmonic cycles. That's the first step to returning to living in the natural cycles. This is a cry that's being taken up, as I mentioned in the Institute yesterday. People in more than 90 countries now are taking this up and following that. And because when you do that, then you're making a change in your mental frequency. And that's the key. We have to begin to change our mental frequency. We're falling into the trap of the destruction of the previous world systems, where we subordinate the development of our consciousness to technological progress. And that's a mistake that's been made in all the previous Atlantises and the previous world systems. We have to begin to get out of that. You have to change your mental frequency. And the whole scene is dominated by an accelerating mental frequency based on an error in time. So you have to correct that first and get in tune with the natural cycles. The 13-moon, 28-day is a universal cosmic cycle. The second is to understand that it is in our power, through our intention, to actually affect the Earth's electromagnetic field. The noosphere, as a governing mechanism of the thinking layer of the planet that governs the thought waves of the different advancing stages of life on Earth, that this noosphere is located between the two radiation belts. So that we're already actually in our thinking operating with electromagnetic signals that are interfacing with the electromagnetic field. The point is to make it intentional and conscious and collective. The noosphere, if you have to stop and think, if there's cosmic consciousness and we're operating as one planetary mind, who's going to keep a secret? If you're operating with universal telepathy, you got nothing to hide. That's a very big shift in our consciousness. Right now we live in atomized, individualized, egotistical consciousness where you can say one thing and do another.